It's stimulating, mind-expanding, safer to use than alcohol. It's the in thing, the hula hoop of the jet generation, and as much a part of growing up as smoking corn silk behind the back fence. Such are the myths concerning marijuana. Myths that lull thousands of young people into experimenting with a noxious weed. The facts are otherwise. Marijuana is an intoxicating, mind-muddling drug. Its use can lead to abnormal behavior, to psychological dependence, and to abuse of other drugs. The human brain, after all, is made for thinking, not fumigating. It's hardly a tinker toy for experimenting with drugs. This has been a public service message of the American Medical Association and your local station.
You know, if you were to follow a busy doctor as he makes his daily round of calls, you'd find yourself having a mighty busy time keeping up with him. Time out for many men of medicine usually means just long enough to enjoy a cigarette. And because they know what a pleasure it is to smoke a mild, good-tasting cigarette, they're particular about the brand they choose. In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment? See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good-tasting a cigarette can be.
Good evening, goblins and ghouls, and welcome to the Wednesday night Scream Stream Mini-sode. I'm your host, Spakenstein, and I'm here with my very good friend, Mr. Evan Sink. As you can see with Job's black and white picture here, he unfortunately last minute couldn't join us this evening, so
he's passed on.
He's, as you can tell, because the picture's in black and white, clearly it implies that he has taken one step beyond, and will not be joining us.
One step beyond this mortal coil. Rest in peace.
R.I.P. We're gonna pour one out. No, I can't do that again. We've already had that discussion on one episode about. Fortunately, in my studio, I can't be pouring any out for anybody. So, well, thank you guys. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight on this Wednesday night. I shouldn't really have to say it. If you know, you know. This 420 evening. It is 420. If you know just the significance of the day, or some cultures, you might say, consider it a holiday. It's a celebration of...
It's a celebration of Luther Vandross. Happy birthday.
Right. Oh, okay. And so that was one thing I was really happy before we got in the episode. Evan let me know that there's a lot of things that 420 is about.
There's a lot of other things that have happened
many
today.
Other things besides the fact that it is considered a stoner holiday, if I can just put it that way. So okay, Luther Vandross's birthday. That's cool.
Napoleon's birthday.
Oh, all right, Napoleon. Okay, the complex time.
Marie Curie did something today.
Oh, what she
And Pierre. Don't forget about Pierre.
and Pierre? What they do?
They discovered radium in
Ooh,
1902.
okay, that's
A mere 100 and some change years ago.
Just a mere 100 and some change years ago. Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay.
What else we got? Oh, Wrigley Field. First game at Wrigley Field was
what year was
1916.
that? Oh, okay. There we go. You remember last week, if you joined us or saw last week's episode of One Step Beyond, we were in 1914. We were right up at the sinking of the Titanic, which happened April 14th, 19. What year was that actually? Is it 1914? What year was the Titanic sinking? I always forget.
See, I don't know. If only Joe were still here with us.
Right, Joe would certainly know that off the top of his head. I should know my Titanic lore a little better. But so it's funny, you know, we're staying chronological to a certain extent because, you know, here we are on 420 and even with our episode of One Step Beyond this evening, we are celebrating I guess just the joys of mind-altering substances and you know, just opening your mind up and expanding it and taking it to new realms and
taking a step beyond,
taking one step beyond through the power of drugs, essentially. In this case, psychoactive drugs, which again, remember that One Step Beyond season 1 started in 1959. I really should have looked beforehand, but off the top of my head, cannot remember what season this comes from. I'm pretty sure it's season 2. And the title is The Sacred Mushroom. So
season 3, 1961.
Oh, that's season 3. Oh, okay.
Wow,
I did not know that. I was wrong. Okay, that's, you know, it's been happening lately. I'm getting facts wrong. So anybody that wants to come in here and bring the facts where I either have them wrong or don't have them, you want to fact check me or you want to bring some more facts, we are open for it because I would have sworn it was like season 2. Okay, season 3. Thank you, fact checker Evan. Okay, that's cool. So this was season 3, and this is a little different from the episodes that we've been watching because very much like Twilight Zone, this is an anthology series where we've been getting individual stories. And they've always got some paranormal twist, some paranormal bent. This one's a little different because it's essentially a documentary episode where John Newland is actually the subject of the episode. And yes, and so John.
This is not what I was expecting going into this.
It's great, dude. So this was 1961, so this is right around the time that people, I mean, this is a little bit of time into people experimenting and the government experimenting with LSD and other psychoactive drugs. And so this came about, I can't remember, there was some kind of mushroom, some kind of special mushroom that had psychoactive properties, and it was being tested in like labs or something like that. So John Newland, I guess there was also stuff, kind of articles questioning could psychoactive drugs, and I think that was the whole thing about what MK Ultra was about, right? Was could these drugs give you psychic mind powers or some kind of, you know,
right, yeah, could make a super soldier by feeding somebody.
You give them drugs, right? Can you control their brain? Can you get to their brain on another level. It's just kind of exploring what the depths are. And I think what people quickly find out, there are no fucking depths, because every person is different. When you give them a drug, it's just, you know, you can have a lot of similar things.
So what I'm hearing is, so John Newland was 3 seasons into making his show,
right?
And one fateful night, he comes across an ad in a newspaper for a clinical study, and he thinks, well, I've probably got enough time between episodes. And
even better, Evan, they actually, the mushroom was found or kind of located or sourced out of South America. So John Newland legit travels to South America for this episode. So it is
well, we got this budget, we got this team. I mean, should we go for it? Should we just do it?
Let's just do it instead of spending, you know, however much on this costume drama. Because apparently it's season 3. I think they were doing a lot of filming in England, and they were doing a lot of like costume dramas, things like that. And yeah, this is certainly a change of pace, and it gets to the point where you know, we'll see what Mr. Newland does kind of going into this environment, and we'll see
what he learns.
We'll see what he learns.
It sounds like you remember when you're young and you're in school, and you get an excuse to go on vacation, right, as long as you say you learned something. Maybe you write down like half a page of
and they're like, all right, if you learned, if you can just bring us back 30 minutes, like that's all we need, you know, 30 minutes of footage. It's got to make
okay, John, look, you this plan, look, I know what you're doing and I'm not against it, but just get us 30 minutes content, okay?
You think you're pretty sneaky?
We need to spin this into an episode, John.
You're
I can't do this for you again.
We can't spin your shit into gold, John. You got to do that for yourself. You go out here and you just start tripping balls, then you come back. You're gonna come back with 2 minutes of you staring into the camera, and then taking your foot and stepping over the camera again and again and again, and constantly saying,
"Look, John, the people at Alcoa are breathing down my neck. I can't keep covering for you, John.
John, I don't know why you insist that we keep wrapping this aluminum foil around this bottle of liquor, and you know, I think you just need to go lie down, okay?" Yeah, I haven't seen this, so I don't really know what we're in store for outside of what I've, you know, kind of already said. And so it just from that alone, shaping up to be an exciting episode, I would say.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I've said in past mini-sodes, I've been saving this episode. You know, I didn't want to lead with it because it just seems really good when I just say it's a documentary, John Newland is out there doing this. You're like, once you've had the perspective of 5 episodes of the show, you're like, okay, well, what the fuck? This is totally left field. And it just so happens to be that we have one of these mini-sodes scheduled on 4/20. So again, it's very on theme, and I couldn't have planned it any better. I'm really happy I didn't, you know, just lead with it out of the gate. It would have been very easy for me.
You gotta save an episode like this for the anniversary of the Texas sales tax.
Ooh, okay. Wait, the Texas sales tax? What
apparently, yeah, 1961 approved a general retail sales tax.
Oh, okay, that's intriguing. All right, that's definitely some history. That's a deep cut from history. Evan, you certainly did thorough research. I'm very impressed. You're gonna have to let me in on your sources here, because this is top-notch stuff. Oh man. All right. Well, before we get into this episode, are there any wagers, we've been trying to kind of figure out ways to predict or kind of figure out what crazy place could this be going, but it's so
I don't
crazy.
know if this is so much a prediction, but certainly a desire. I really hope that this one ends as abruptly as most of these tend to. So John Newland is just tripping balls on the sacred mushroom, and then it just kind of ends.
Right, that, or and somebody else has to come out and try to deliver his monologue, and they're awful, and they can't. It's just, and then
or it's just nobody. It cuts back to that same set,
the empty room,
but there's just nobody standing there.
Right, I could certainly see that. That would leave a little suspense on the ends, like. Yeah, it would have been even crazier if this was the very last episode, because you're like,
I was thinking the same thing. If this
what the fuck happened to John Newland? He just tripped balls and dropped
went to
off
South
the map.
America, and this episode came back, but he never came back.
He just decided to stay there and keep eating his mushrooms. Who knows? All of those things and more can happen when we get into this episode of One Step Beyond, titled The Sacred Mushroom. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it. All right. Haven't we started? Whoop.
This member of the mushroom family, this fungus, is for the moment known only as X. It was discovered barely weeks ago growing in a remote rainforest. Science has not yet given it a name, for science knows scarcely anything about it. But it is felt that X might have one remarkable
Scientists
quality.
are too scared to even talk about this mushroom.
It stimulates extra
It's blowing their fucking minds.
Enabling the mind to become telepathic.
These scientists are too high to name this mushroom.
Now that's a rather large claim. Is it true or false?
Clairvoyance, man. Could you
The answer
imagine?
to that question took us on a unique and distant journey. We're in Mexico.
Mexico, not South. Okay.
Hollywood sound stages in a
Central
place called
America.
Central
on the very
America.
edge
Central
of civilization. There are no actors, there's no script.
The
This
ballpark.
psychic report can only be recorded at the moment it happens. Here in the plaza of the kings of Zapotec, here in the antiquity of Mexico, we begin a search whose ending, at this very moment of filming, we do not know. We are searching for something far older than these ruins, which, if found, could hurtle ordinary man infinitely beyond his five senses. And now the first
He
step.
said it.
The first step is a faltering one.
Oh,
We wait day after day for perfect flying weather. For the only way to reach our goal, the inaccessible village of Juquila, is by
Juquila.
light plane over trackless mountains. Has he come back yet?
No.
Well, keep your fingers crossed. This lovely hacienda at the foot of the Dome Mountain
hacienda.
has been here a little longer than we have.
That's a fun word.
But not
It
much.
is fun.
From here, weather permitting, our chartered plane will fly us to a remote mountain village to look for, of all things, a mushroom. But a very strange mushroom indeed, with powers beyond belief. And here are the mushroom hunters, as improbable a group as you will find anywhere. For instance, this is Dr. Barbara Brown, brilliant neuropharmacologist
Barbara
of the
Brown.
University of California
A
at
beat,
Los
a
Angeles.
beat, a Barbara Brown.
With her,
So,
is David
I'm
Gray,
sure that, like,
one of the last kahunas of Hawaii, a spiritual
kind of
leader
native
whose
people
line goes
have
back
been
900
using
years,
all sorts
whose
of
quest for knowledge
psychedelic
beyond the world
things
of
for
materialism
forever.
has led him
100%.
everywhere in the world.
When did
And now here
when did white people discover mushrooms?
is Jeffrey Smith,
I think this
a
time,
distinguished
this
professor of
episode,
philosophy and humanities at Stanford
I mean, like,
University.
when the
he
college
is
professors started
trembling with
discovering
anticipation.
it.
He's the first white man to ever figure this out.
Is our translator, William Upson, a missionary who has lived among the people of our remote village for the last 9 years, and the only man in the world who speaks their language.
The pilot
God,
says in
got a
the
team, a
John.
crack
And
team
last,
here, man.
Our forever optimistic
Gee.
Dr. Andre
It's
Puharish
like Ocean's
wrote the
11.
astounding book,
Seriously.
The Sacred Mushroom. Dr. Paharish's book
We're
brought
gonna
us here
go
in the first
raid
place.
this village,
And in
dude.
it, he explains
Take
how
all the mushrooms.
The mushroom seems to
They're going
have
foraging,
an incredible
man.
effect on the power of extrasensory perception.
Incredible is the word. We're here for some very specific purposes. We want to know why these people here in Mexico have kept this right so secret for so many centuries. But
Because we
I
would
would
lose
say
our
that
fucking
our
minds,
prime
and
mission
people
is
do.
to
That you're about, we're gonna find that
explore
out.
and examine the biochemicals present in these new mushrooms and find out if they can be of any benefit in this problem of mental disease.
Yes,
Dr. Paharish has-
yes,
Well, I mean,
that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
As
That's
simple as
good.
it sounds.
It's been
The last time he was
proven.
here,
well, not
yeah,
proven,
I'm
but
sure.
there's been
man
studies
shot.
with PTSD and
shot at.
people taking
another man was,
psilocybin. I'm pretty
driven out of
sure.
his
Right, I mean,
For
they're
a while.
treating depression with psilocybin now.
Exactly.
El piloto dice que ya. In English, dice que ya means the pilot said, now.
Now, now we go.
There's no time to lose, John.
God, that's like some kind of clown plane. They just fit like 10 people in that
The shot has
tiny.
allowed two small
That's-
planes fall on rainforests
Oh,
which hide
two.
villages where the 20th
You
century
would
does
need
not
to.
exist.
There's like half a dozen people in
They-
each of those planes.
And not counting the camera crew and his producer, probably.
And that's the landing strip, chopped by hand out of a mountainside. Missionaries can bring the word of God to this lost world. As we approach, the
To
pilot
these
warns us
lost,
to grab hold of something
godless
and hang
people.
on. A sudden gust of
Welcome
wind could
to
smash us against
Jurassic
the mountain
Park.
or plunge us into the abyss below.
I wish.
At last, we are in the village of Hukila, slogging through mud. Each of us with an odd sense that all the clocks have stopped ticking. We've brought television cameras to people who've never even heard of radio, who've never seen a telephone, an electric light, who've never heard of aspirin, let alone penicillin. But perhaps the sacred mushroom has given them a psychic insight far beyond our deepest explorations.
Maybe, John, maybe.
Psychic.
It breaks up to go about its various investigations. Dr. Brown and a missionary nurse named Dean Duggan go looking for the mushroom.
Dean
Guarded
Duggan
by
and
armed
Barbara
soldiers
Brown.
Because in the past months, shots have been fired,
You can use
machetes
your
have been
aliases?
flashed.
Mm-hmm.
Mushroom hunters who came before us have been murdered.
Oh shit.
Dr. Puharish and missionary Upson begin searching the town for a brujo, a priest of the mushroom cult.
Brujos.
But everywhere they go, an iron curtain of
Mushroom
silence
cult?
comes
That
crashing
sounds awesome.
down. And
That
with
does
much
sound
shaking of
pretty
the head
wild.
and wagging of the finger, everyone emphatically denies the existence of a mushroom cult.
There's
And
no
it is
such
made
thing.
very clear that
It's not a cult.
this is why we have come to Hukila. We are not welcome.
Get the fuck out of our village, you
Our
fucking
Yeah,
crazy
it's
ass
so
white
cool.
Dr.
people.
Puharish gets an idea that might help us push open an ancient door. Bill Upson is sent through the village announcing that a free medical clinic is open to one and all. Within minutes, the first patient appears. A little Chitino Indian with a lot of aches and a lot of pains. And then they come in droves. All of them humble. All of them hopeful. All of them grateful. Finally, the mother of a child whom Dr. Puharish has treated timidly suggests that she might help. Kindness and a bottle of vitamins have worked a magic of their own. Sometime tonight, we will have a visitor.
So they're having to
Thanks to the
trade
help of the sick
like
child's mother,
favors to
Secret
get.
arrangements are made.
Yeah, I
Get
really
this
want
off
to know
the
about
hidden
that.
place
Very
to
tit for tat.
But it is almost midnight before the brujo appears. He has practiced the secret
Curious
and all
with
but
some
forbidden rites of the
borders.
sacred mushroom for decades. Rites passed on from father to son for perhaps 4,000 years. But of course he has never performed before such an audience or a camera.
No.
Our scientists have prepared test questions to evaluate the brujo's extrasensory perception. But he insists on one condition, to achieve spiritual union, they also must eat the mushroom. However,
Yes.
in attached scientific observation, he agrees that Dr. Brown does not have to take the mushroom.
You gotta have one
Right to begin.
person who's kind of, you know, sober, that can give you a
Strangely
ride if you need to
aromatic
go
root is
somewhere.
Right, yeah.
Inhaled. The brujo murmurs incantations in Chitina, a language unknown anywhere else on this earth. As our group waits for the mushroom to take effect, Bill Upson questions the brujo. Because of the circumstances, the sound is, of course, far from perfect.
Nice.
Just asked him when we would see something, when something would happen. And he held up his hand to indicate that he didn't want to talk at this particular time.
And then silence again as we wait.
Shit.
And then, oddly enough, the first sound we hear as the chemical in the mushroom takes effect is laughter. Brujo has just told of an amusing moment from Bill's childhood in Indiana. Indiana, a place the Brujo does not even know exists.
Holy shit.
Now, each of the groups tests the extrasensory powers of the Brujo. Sometimes he is accurate, sometimes he is not.
Well, to brighten the eyes. The whole rabbit will brighten the eyes.
Oh, it's perfect.
This means clairvoyance, right? Clairvoyance.
The following is one moment when he is startlingly correct. Suddenly he turns to Dr. Brown, whom of course he has never seen or heard of before.
Very good.
No, but I had to eat it. To eat my butt.
You're still sick.
Because you have to eat.
Sick in the chest.
Because you have
Your heart.
to eat my butt.
Your heart is sick. Can you ask
Heart's sick.
specific? No, let's try to get it.
Heart rate.
EGD.
Without a moment's hesitation, he accurately diagnosed a personal illness that only Dr. Brown knows about.
Whoa, that's
Our
cool.
next experience with the Brujo and the sacred mushroom comes quickly and unexpectedly. And this time it has nothing to do with scientific investigation. Since it is now common knowledge that we have already witnessed the rite, we are allowed to come along to see a second priest at work, a man named Macedonia, who agreed to take the mushroom and listen to the villagers' problem.
He said his burro was stolen, and he wants to know where to find it.
In this village of Huquila, the theft of a burro, a man's most important possession, his donkey, is second only to murder.
He said 3 men are involved.
Macedonia hardly paused a moment before he named the thieves.
Gustavo said he was going to take the 3 of them to jail tomorrow. But Don Macedonio warned him not to go near the house of Juan and Pedro because they
Yeah,
would
that
kill him,
microphone
but to
is
look for it in the house of Jose.
pretty warbly.
We go
I
with
love
the
that
villagers
though.
through a
Space
valley,
alien.
It's got some
across
Longmont
past
Potion
other
Castle
villages
going
to
on up in
exact
here.
spot Macedonia said the burro would be. And here indeed it is. Its identifying brand clearly marked on the burro's flank. Now perhaps we can understand, more or less, why for 4,000 years, and from one civilization to the next, the sacred mushroom has endured. We have been given a practical demonstration of how it works in the daily lives of this primitive people.
3 weeks have passed, and we're a long way from our remote mountain village of Huquila in Mexico. We're also a long way from the secret rites of the sacred mushroom cult. But our search for the truth about the mushroom,
Still talking about that cult.
that is the truth as we understand it, is far from over. These men are our technical crew who have come with me from Los Angeles to help us continue our search. We've come to the home and laboratory of
Isn't
Dr.
the
Henry
boom
Harris.
mic guy is
Northern
always
California.
Poor
shirtless?
boom mic guy, dude.
For me, personally,
Is he shirtless?
this next step
Is he?
beyond
He looks like I can't
may
tell.
be
Oh,
a
I
rather
can't
large
tell.
one. This is part of the laboratory and study of Dr. Puharish. Here among his solid and sound books of orthodox medicine, there are also other books. They are
Other
written in
books.
French, in Spanish, in English. Here's one that says, Mushrooms, Russia, and History. They're written in Syrian, Japanese, all the languages of the world.
That's
And they're all
cool.
concerned with one thing. The same thing. The riddle of the sacred mushroom. Now, when we were in Mexico, the brujo who discovered the stolen burro might have been coincidence. And the other brujo who told
The
Dr. Barbara
brujo
Brown
who discovered
about her
the
past illness
stolen
might have been a
burro.
blind
What?
case. But today, we should be able to prove the case for or against the mushroom, the sacred mushroom, with quite a lot more accuracy.
What's that now, John?
Those the mushrooms you brought back from Mexico?
Yes.
Andre, how many people have you tested since you've been back?
You'll be number 26.
What about the results?
Number
Encouraging.
26.
The average of the group as a whole, and the series is quite small, you understand, shows evidence for extrasensory perception after taking the mushrooms.
Well, I'm ready.
All right, let's do
I'm
this.
game. This is what I've been
Quite
waiting for.
yet. We have to do some control tests first to see if you have any ESP before you take the mushroom.
Oh,
We gotta figure out if you're
And
psychic
these
from
will
doing
be
this
done
show
with
for so
cards,
long.
Pictures and books.
I see.
Now you just
What?
sit still there.
He just starts shoving mushrooms into his mouth, just grabbing them off the tray.
I might try to be a great big psychic without anybody's help from anything, huh? Mushrooms from... Where are you?
Where are you? Get in my mouth. He's too excited.
Now, John, you take your left hand and bring it in here on this first block. There's a row of 10 blocks by you. You bring your right hand over and you scan this far row and you remain sensitive to any impressions, and when you think you're over the card that matches the one your left hand is on, you pick it up and move it opposite that card.
I see. It's like tall buildings in Chicago or
Yeah.
something like that.
Tall buildings in Chicago.
Tall buildings in Chicago. That's not well. How'd that do with the rest of the
Well,
Hey, you
got
suck.
your scores added up. On this test, you got 5 hits out of 50. On the book test here, you got 1 out of 16, and you got nothing on the pictures. This is a chance score and shows.
That shows that despite 3 years without a show, I have what we call practically no sensory perception at all.
It's like, God damn it, that's what this is all
What do we do
about.
now?
Now to eat the mushrooms.
Why am I even doing this show?
I was hoping I'd at least get haunted or something.
Which ones are we going to eat? These, you have so many here, Andre. Which one is
No,
mine?
these are for you. These are. Chew them well when you.
Ugh.
Not bad, are they?
Tastes just like mushrooms.
And one more for you.
Looking a little anxious there, John.
Dry.
Yeah, they're dry. Yeah, they're dry.
What now?
Now we'll lie you down on the bed.
What for?
Oh.
We'll do some physical testing before the effects of the mushroom
Yeah, that's a
take
good
hold.
question, John. It's
Like
important,
what?
you know.
Like what effects?
You'll find out.
You didn't tell me this was gonna be.
Well, it's been about 20 minutes since you had the
play some
mushroom,
Pink
John. How do you
Floyd.
feel?
Fine. I feel strong. So you don't. It's kind of hard to. Strong. A sense of. I get a sense of well-being. Is that?
Yes, some people feel that way. Let's try something. I want you to stand right up here in front of this light. Yes, close your eyes and tell me what you see.
Oh, it's just gonna blast him with light. Oh, I would
Lower
hate
your
that.
head a little bit. A little more. No.
Make it stop. Make it stop.
Seriously, ah.
I don't like this anymore.
Oh, I see it. Now I see it. I see so many things I can't tell you. Can you slow it? Slow it? Now I see but I see so many colors that are go.
Are they pretty?
In geometric signs.
Are they
now
pretty?
it's like great things. They're magnificent. That's what they are. They're magnificent.
Oh my God,
I've
it's
never
full of
been
stars.
so aware of color. Of color.
Color.
It makes me quite dizzy. I feel like I would like to dive into the middle of it.
Well, we'll try the card test again.
Well,
Now.
All right, same way. You start with your left hand and try
He's
to...
definitely high. Let's see
he
what
is
psychic.
definitely tripping. Oh, dramatic music. Come on, get out of here. Nothing. No, nothing. Wait. No.
Very distinct impression of like the dunes of a desert
The same kid's face.
Oh, it's kind of close.
hoops.
The close in the ballpark.
And the end.
That's pretty close, John.
That's pretty
Wanna try
close,
another one,
John.
please?
John Newland would go on to write Dune.
It has.
It's like after tripping, I just
It has a great deal.
had all these
It
ideas.
has something. Power. Like noise. I don't know how to translate that into a picture. It seems to have that noise and speed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
Peculiar. It's like there's a face looking this way, and another face is looking up that way.
That's pretty good. Would you like to take a look and see what it's like? Amazing, isn't it?
Blown away, dude.
Totally psychic.
Andre, before you tell me anything about the score, let me tell you something. That I did feel something sort of profound. When touching the pictures, touching the cards, I felt something. I don't know how I did, but the sensation.
Yeah, I imagine it's a pretty
John, I can tell you
low
it wasn't,
dose that they gave
delusion
him.
on your part
But
because
could you imagine
your
if they
card
just didn't
scores
know?
were 12 hits out of 50, which are significant for ESP. You got 3
gave him
out of
too much, and
16
he's
of
just
the
stuck in
page
the
numbers
bed.
on the book. And of course, most intriguing of all was your work with the pictures. You got 6 adequate descriptions out of 8 pictures.
Wow.
It's a marvelous sensation. You know, Andre,
Is he psychic?
I think I understand a little why for so many centuries they have called this mushroom sacred.
Sacred, sacred, sacred.
Now our mushroom hunters are reassembled here in our studio. Dr. Brown, was our search worth it?
Yes, I think so. The chemicals in the mushrooms, I think, will offer us another tool by which we can explore the mechanisms and the capabilities of the mind of man. And that's both sensory and extrasensory.
What about you, Professor Smith?
Well, John, the more I experience of life in its ordinary and extraordinary aspects, the more I feel like a wide-eyed child reaching for knowledge and life. As for the mushroom, It took me out into worlds I didn't believe
out there,
existed.
This man has seen things
Far beyond ordinary perception. And yet, even today, they're as real and as important to my everyday life as anything I've experienced.
It has been changed.
Yeah.
Dr. Puharish?
During our stay in Hukila, I witnessed quite a number of cases of extrasensory perception by the Brujos, some of which we could not film, as you know, John. These, in addition to the ones we did film, and the work which we have done since our return, convinces me that the mushroom contains a chemical which is most promising for the further investigation of extrasensory perception.
When this program began, the question was, were the claims for the mushroom true or false? Well, for those of us who made the journey, the answer is true.
Wow. All right. Dang. Crazy. So as y'all can tell, we did not do the break that we would normally do, because I was just
Exciting.
I was really captured by all that. Like I said,
I kind of was too. I looked down, I was thinking, oh, it's probably about time for the break, and it's just almost over.
Yeah, I mean, that was where I was like, when he got to the panel of the three people at the end, I was like, okay, should I do a break here? And then when I scrolled and I saw, I was like, I might as well just let this play out. Because yeah, I mean, the whole thing, I mean, once he popped those shrooms in his mouth, you're like, okay, well, I can't interrupt this. I have to see.
I gotta see where this is going.
I gotta see where this goes. So wow, so it was certainly interesting. I wouldn't say that they on any level proved anything about telekinesis or psychic abilities, but
it's certainly proved they had a good time.
Certainly proved that John Newland spent a decent chunk of the budget going out and convincing a bunch of people to go to Mexico and get him, basically shrooms. I mean, that's an expensive way for a connect, but I mean, we're talking, this is the early days of all this stuff. I mean, you want to get your hands
you gotta
on,
go all the way to Mexico. You
gotta go there and get it yourself, and luckily he had the resources of a television show. There's some of these, doctors, professors. Yeah, thank you, Alcoa. Again, I mean, on top of wonderful aluminum, you're also, have no problem financing expeditions to Mexico to try this magic mushroom, which I gotta say, I mean, it was kind of funny seeing him like go to the village and them seek out the Brujo. It was all very, there's been a lot of, in the past 5 to 10 years, a lot of people pushing the whole idea of shamans and going out in the jungles or in the Amazon and trying to find real shamans, and people going on retreats and stuff. And it's just funny that
people have been doing this for forever now.
They really have. And again, like you asked a good question earlier in the episode, as far as like, so this is pretty much new to white people, is what this is at that time. It's
right.
Like in these villages, it's like this is just part of the way of life. But
this is just another Tuesday when you're in the mushroom cult,
right? It was blowing John Newland's mind. I think that's for sure.
Definitely saw a different side of John Newland tonight.
Yeah, getting a little excitable, a little less confident and smug. I mean, as if you know what it's like. We are in no way advocating that anybody take any kind of, you do you is basically our motto here. But when you go into an experience like that, it's certainly let your guard down. It opens you up. It makes you vulnerable. And I think he showed a little bit of vulnerability there.
Yeah, for sure. I really liked this episode. I thought that, I mean, definitely, this is the only episode of this show that's like this, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
it's so strange. You have like an anthology of paranormal stuff, and then this trip report.
That's what I'm saying. Could you imagine? And that's what is so wild is that it's such a one-off. In this show itself, the fact that season 3 they decided to do something like this, and it's like he could have pivoted after that. They could have tried to find ways to do more episodes like this where they're just going up into places basically doing like paranormal hunting and paranormal researching and stuff, and that would have been pretty cool. But instead it was kind of a one-off thing for the show. But like, you don't see Twilight Zone doing this. You don't see Boris Karloff's Thriller show doing this. You don't see Alfred Hitchcock Presents doing this.
I never saw Rod Serling doing ayahuasca in the jungle.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, they never decided that they wanted to spend that sweet, sweet CBS money to go out into the Amazon and trip balls. But I mean, I would have been interested to see what Rod Serling would have been putting out after an experience like that. But I mean,
probably would be psychic.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, we're talking two totally different levels when we start making comparisons between Twilight Zone One Step Beyond, Rod Serling, John Newland. I mean, but that's the thing. You can put this in John Newland's corner, is that Rod Serling never did anything like this with his show.
Not the guts.
Well, not the guts, and I certainly don't think that CBS would have approved it. And I think that, I think that Alcoa, so I watched an interview with John Newland talking about the production of the show, and it, he kind of made it sound like more or less that Alcoa just gave him the money and just kind of left him alone and let them kind of he directed every episode, by the way. So let him pretty much have free reign over this show. And I think especially when you're directing every episode and you're only accountable to this one sponsor. Like, I don't think Twilight Zone was like that. I think Twilight Zone was accountable to the network. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure like they were accountable to CBS, and then One Step Beyond had Alcoa. So it was just kind of like, all right, we'll go send John out to Mexico and let him.
You can get away with more when your patron is a tinfoil company.
Yeah, I mean, they've got bigger fish to fry. I'm sure they're involved in all kinds of international coups and KGB and MK Ultra, CIA, all kinds of stuff.
Alcoa was behind it all.
Alcoa was right there in the thick of it. So, John Newland was kind of like part of the front. Like, they're doing most of the time, I wouldn't say, and again, we've now seen like 6 episodes of this show. I don't want to say that it's boring, because there's certainly some interesting things, but I think this has been one of the more fun, kind of interesting episodes. I don't know if I'm underselling the rest of it, but it, again, when you start trying to compare it to Twilight Zone, it doesn't compare. But it's interesting to see an episode like this that just sticks out and across the board. And I mean, you certainly don't expect to see the host of a television show popping a magic mushroom in his mouth. I mean, again, I think even for this day and age, now that's not to say that So I don't know if Evan or anybody out there is familiar. There's this show on Vice network called Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, and I can't remember if he actually takes drugs on that show or just like is around people who are taking it or making it. He just like, it's all, every episode's like a different drug, and he just, that's the show, is he goes around.
It's funny you say that. I was gonna make a joke earlier about if they made this show nowadays, it would be by Vice.
Well, you are 100% spot on. It's called Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, and it's the son of famous documentary filmmaker Errol Morris, who did The Thin Blue Line. His son hosts this show at Hamilton, and my dad loves it. And it's one of his favorite shows. And he just goes around and is able to, he'll interview people that are wearing masks and hiding their identity, but he'll get like right up in there in really kind of sketchy situations. And I think he's dealt with some really sketchy drugs too. And it's not really a show that I've watched, but I think that to a certain extent we can say that John Newland certainly paved the way for a show like that. I mean, somebody had to be the first person to say, all right, I'm going to take this person's money and I'm going to finance me tripping on camera. I mean, the idea, what year did we say this was? 61, 62, 63? 61. So again, pretty, what is that? 61 years.
Yeah.
Crazy. And here we are all those years later, you know. And again, I think it's also important to put in perspective. So that was 61. Universities and the government were experimenting with psychoactive drugs by the mid, you know. And last week, Evan, the Scream Stream main week episode that you weren't able to join us for, we watched A Bucket of Blood, which is 1959, and it is covering the beatnik movement. And that was certainly, drugs were part of the beatnik image, but also part of the beat generation. And so again, like I said last week, that evolved in kind of hippie counterculture, and certainly drugs were kind of more championed by the hippie counterculture. And it's, you know, and it culminated in 1969 with the Summer of Love. So it's interesting to see in this, you know, this episode tonight, 1961, to the height of the hippie movement 8 years later. It's kind of interesting to, and that's the thing. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play the ads tonight, but they're just these really trippy ads from the late 60s, early 70s. And it's just interesting to see how psychedelic culture ended up kind of permeating advertising, and just because there's like, it's like an alphabets commercial from the 70s that's all psychedelic and trippy, and it's a Coca-Cola commercial that's all psychedelic and trippy, and it didn't come from nowhere. You know, I mean, again, it comes out of art and artistic movements, but it kind of is synonymous with illicit substances. That's what expands your mind, right? So I hope it did wonders for John Newland. He didn't go on to do much, I think, after One Step Beyond, but you know, he did do the
shit. It is wild to think about. It is wild to think about how. So the rest of the show is about, you know, these paranormal things that are, you know, very up in the air, very questionable about whether they exist or not. But like this tonight's episode is real. This was a real thing, a real phenomenon.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because like from the very first episode, it was kind of, okay, this is clearly just some urban legend stuff, and they're just kind of making up stories. But this was as real as it gets, man. Documentary. It doesn't get any realer than that. So yeah, I mean, you can't understate the cool factor of it all. Yeah, I'm glad that I saved it. I'm glad that I saved it for 420. I think that I'm really glad I didn't watch it before this point, because it's, I will say I was surprised about that little nugget from, I guess it was the doctor, like the main doctor who was there when John Newland was tripping, who said that maybe these substances can be used to help treat mental illnesses. I was like, do an episode on that. That would have been really wild. That would have been really
neat that even back then, like immediately they picked up on that possibility.
Well, and that's just what sucks, is that, again, like I said, you had a lot of experimentation in the late 50s, early 60s, and then by the time that Nixon gets into the White House, and after the peak of the counterculture movement, 1969, that's when Nixon started cracking down. And at that point, after that, you had Carter for a little bit, who was pretty friendly when it comes to he apparently, I don't know if anybody knows the story about him smoking a J with Willie Nelson at the White House or something like that.
Really? I hadn't heard that one.
I'm pretty sure it was either him or his son, or him and his son smoked a J with Willie Nelson at the White House. But then after that, you had Reagan, and you had the real war on drugs. I mean, I think the war on drugs started with Nixon, but I think it really ramped up. I mean, in the Reagan era, I think was when you had DARE, and you had all these things. And so what that did was it shut down all the testing. Like it made, I think it made a lot of, even in a college setting or laboratory settings, like it made it illegal. So it was just until the last couple years, maybe during the Obama administration, that they finally opened up.
Some of these doors have been reopened.
Yeah, and so now they are finding really cool things, like the fact that it can be used to maybe treat PTSD or to deal with other kinds of trauma. It's really, it's just cool to see, and it was cool to see just a little nugget in this show tonight that, okay, you had people back then who, I mean, that was the way that academia was kind of looking at it. And I don't know if you're familiar with the actor Cary Grant, but he was like a big proponent of taking LSD because he had undergone LSD therapy with his therapist, and it totally changed his mind, or his outlook on life. I mean, I don't think he really had too much of a stance on drugs either way, but afterwards he was a huge advocate for LSD, and like with therapy, and he said it was huge for him in therapy. And but then again, like I said, shortly after that was when Nixon brought the hammer down, and unfortunately,
to think how things could have been different.
How different things could have been if we would have just been had a little bit more foresight. Because again, I think when you're reactionary and you decide, okay, we've got to ban, we've got to immediately do away with everything, you're not really, I don't know. Again, it's easier to be reactionary than it is to actually consider how to control it in a way that you can use it for the things that it may actually be beneficial for, but you can also educate people enough so that they aren't going to feel the need to abuse a thing. That's the weird thing about DARE, I think, is that there's an idea of like education about drugs, but it's more, I think the difference is DARE's probably focused a little more on the demonization of drugs. I mean,
I really don't remember DARE that much.
I mean, except outside.
I have to assume it was like an abstinence kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. Write this about why this is bad. Do this workbook and read about why you shouldn't do this, or why. And I think we got
I remember the lion.
Right, everybody remembers the lion from Dare. And I mean, but we had extensions in, once you get into middle school and they start in like health classes, they start teaching you about drugs and like smoking and alcohol and the effects that it's all about kind of scaring people. American culture, the Puritanical Society of America, very much about scaring people into don't do this.
We are very susceptible to fear as a people.
Yeah, it's all very much fear-based, where you have Europeans who are like, oh, well, just be responsible and understand, like, be educated about it. It's two totally different ways of approaching a situation. I think you see kind of why, I don't know. I don't know enough stats to know what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of...
Everybody at home, write your congressperson and tell them to watch One Step Beyond.
Right.
They'll get it.
You tell them that Scream Stream sent them to One Step Beyond because they could learn a thing or two. I certainly did tonight. At the very least, I had fun. That was a fun episode.
It was a fun episode. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was good. It was a nice change of pace. I was glad to kind of break out of the stodgy. And again, nothing wrong with it, but just especially last time was on theme with Titanic, but I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of period pieces. If it's contemporary to that time that it was made, that's different. Like I take it for what it is. It doesn't bother me, but I don't know. It's just kind of like, all right, let me get me something that I can like relate to a little more. I don't know. It's all relative. I was just happy to have something a little different, a nice change of pace. Have no clue what I'll do for next week's episode. Again, I think we'll have two more mini-sodes left, and then we're gonna take a break for a week, and then we will probably switch over to either film serials, or I don't know, we may do more television, but I think a film serial may be kind of a nice change of pace. Speaking of changes of pace,
sounds interesting.
Yeah,
could be anything.
There's a lot. They're public domain, and they're always fun. They end on cliffhangers, and sometimes like there's one with Bela Lugosi, and it's man, it's just in everything. Man, okay. And speaking of, segueing into joining us on Friday here for the main Scream stream, we're going to be watching another Bela Lugosi Poverty Row film, The Ape Man from 1943. Yes, Bela Lugosi was in everything. Certainly, if not everything, he made sure to cover his ground with the characters that he played. And, if the work was available, he was doing it. And yeah, the serial that he's in is very much, I think he was in a couple serials actually, but the main one that we would watch is a Universal serial called The Phantom Creeps, it's a little more sci-fi, action-y, espionage kind of, but it's still a lot of fun. Anything with Lugosi is up our alley. So, but the movie for this week, also Lugosi, The Ape Man, it's interesting. It's again, good, bad isn't not words that are going to factor into my vocabulary here. There are admirable things about this movie, and if nothing else, Bela Lugosi's in it, so should be fun. Watch it for him. It is. He always gives his best, no matter what. He's given it his all. He certainly does in this movie. And
the man who loves to act.
I mean, really, he really does. And that's what, there was a chapter in the book that I've read for a couple episodes now. There's a chapter about this movie, and it's very much echoing all this, that, Bela Lugosi he must just love to do it. And he just, really, to the extent of he's just always going, always in all of these kinds of movies. Somebody's got to do it. And I get, who else would have played the role
he just
of the
couldn't
ape
say
man?
no. He's just one of those people who can't say no.
Well,
I don't know if I really want to go to this. Okay, yeah, I'll
I
be in
guess
your movie.
fine. Yeah, I'll do it. it's sad because I need to probably read some newer books and newer biographies. There have been some newer biographies on Lugosi, but a lot of stuff that touches on Lugosi's career always paints it in kind of a tragic light, to the extent of he was always working for bigger and better opportunities, and they just never came. And even when he was settling, the ship had sailed, and it happened
And
after
he met a man named Ed Wood.
Unfortunately, yes. And I'm actually very happy that we, even on this show, we get to go into that stage of Bela Lugosi's career. We get to get into the Ed Wood stage, and there's 3 good movies that we'll get to watch. And I say good. I say good.
Perfectly fine movies.
Because look, I'll tell you, they're comfort movies for me. Not so much Glenn or Glenda, but Glenn or Glenda in its own right is a very interesting. It's going to be a fun movie when we watch it on the show. And Lugosi's role in it is just ridiculous. He just sits in a chair and screams nonsense at the camera, but it's still fun. And, and then, yeah, I mean, a lot of people's image of Lugosi is colored off of what he did with Ed Wood, and the movie Ed Wood by Tim Burton with Johnny Depp and Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi. And Martin Landau won an Oscar for playing Bela Lugosi, but so the popular image of Bela is kind of down and out drug addict, kind of will do just whatever is coming his way. And unfortunately, that reputation certainly got bolstered with these Poverty Row movies that we saw. Voodoo Man, we're gonna watch The Ape Man. The Ape Man was before Voodoo Man, but we'll go into all that. It'll be a lot of fun, again, just getting to with each of these movies, we get to dive deeper into Bela Lugosi's career as a star in this genre, and certainly the most prolific person on this stream. So please join us for that. Evan, anything before we wrap it up? Anything before we go about psychedelic experiences or psychic experiences or ape men?
I think if you've ever had deja vu, you probably just accidentally ate a sacred mushroom.
Right. That's usually what it is. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be just some kind of flashback. If you've already taken them once, it's just flashbacks. You don't even need, that's the power. I'm sure John Newland was tripping for the rest of his life. God can only hope. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. And again, please join us on Friday. And until then, take it easy. And we'll see you guys then. Later.
Carpe Scream, Carpe Stream.
Ayo.